Hello and welcome to Online with SFFP staff picks from the Prelinger Archives. My name is Kathy Rose O'Regan. I am the Executive Director of San Francisco Film Preserve. We are a film preservation focused organization based here in beautiful San Francisco. Our mission is to restore, preserve, and provide access to the world's cinematic heritage, ensuring that films of all eras and genres remain accessible for future generations. Through education, advocacy, and collaboration, we aim to inspire a deeper appreciation for the art of film while safeguarding its cultural significance for years to come. We are currently working on 4 restorations, including Lewis Milestone's The Garden of Eden, and we have another 4 exciting projects coming up later in 2025, which we can't announce quite yet, but believe me, you should listen out for it because they're pretty wonderful. This year, we also, earlier this month, in fact, we released our first Blu-ray with our great friends at Flickr Alley. This beautiful Blu-ray package features Behind the Door and Below the Surface, 2 underwater adventures directed by Irving Willett and starring Hobart Bosworth. Beyond the work of restoring and preserving films, SFFP is dedicated to raising awareness of and exposing new audiences to the endlessly fascinating world of film preservation, which is why we started this monthly series of free presentations on all things film. We are delighted to host the Prelinger Archives team today. The Prelinger Archives is in the final year of a 3-year grant for mass digitization of its film collection, funded by Filecoin Foundation for the Decentralized Web. Since the start of the project, Prelinger Archives staff have scanned over 3 million feet of film, that is 3 million with all of those zeros, and uploaded over 2,000 items, while collectively developing practices of inclusive and reparative description to allow multiple avenues into a vast trove of moving images. Today's curated online screening will highlight rarities and treasures within the collection that have inspired, delighted, and even bewildered their staff. Each speaker will share experiences from the project as footage is screened and will speak to working with a unique collection that contains a wide array of materials, including outtakes, home movies, warped films, and much, much more. The screening will be followed by a Q&A, so if you have any questions, just pop them in the Q&A at the bottom of the screen. Joining us in person today are 4 staff members from the Prelinger Archives: Adrian Finelli, Kristen Lipska, Meg Needles, and Kate Dollenmeyer. Jen Miko and Emily Chow can't be here today, but they have provided us with recordings of their presentations. Our first speaker is Kristen Lipska. Kristen is an archivist specializing in audiovisual media and digitization workflows. She is currently Digital Asset Manager at the Prelinger Archives. Previously, she was Digital and Media Archivist at the San Francisco Symphony and Project Coordinator at California Revealed. She earned a Master's of Library and Information Sciences from San Jose State University and developed skills in video digitization and QC as an intern in the Preservation Department of the Bay Area Video Coalition. Kristen has contributed to several Home Movie Day events in San Francisco Bay Area since 2012 as both a film inspector and as a projectionist. So now, without further ado, I would like to invite Kristen to the screen.
Hello. Thanks everyone for coming today. Kathy, you can go ahead and play the clip whenever. My clips are silent, so I'm going to talk over them. And they're about outtakes. Outtakes make up a significant portion of the Prelinger Archives collection, and there's something we regularly digitize. In many archives, these elements are not usually collected, or they're not selected for digitization. Usually the final film is prioritized. However, they're excellent quality, especially compared to release prints, and they offer beautiful images of people and landscapes. And they show a view into the production labor and production processes and film labor that are not usually seen. In particular, I'm drawn to clapperboards and slates, and that is what I'm sharing today. That previous clip was from a Liberace production, and this is from a Mahorol pain pill commercial from the mid-50s, and I just like how it shows kind of the working relationship between these two people. It's kind of playful. So today I'd like to introduce 3 outtakes collections from companies that made industrial and sponsored films. This first section is from Modart Pictures out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and you'll often see the same crew across different film shoots. It features the film production crew working in industrial settings, wearing the safety gear and, clothing of the other workers in the factory. Um, yeah, they're like this guy. They're possibly hiring teenagers. I don't know how old this guy is. Um, and the films in this section are about the steel industry, the Atomic Energy Commission, the Kiwanis Club, and also a Gibbons beer commercial featuring ventriloquist Senor Wences. This guy has a Modart Pictures jumpsuit that I covet. So the next company I wanted to talk about is called Calvin Company. They're out of Kansas City, Missouri, possibly also hiring teenagers. I don't know. They're known for Robert Altman having directed films for Calvin in the 1950s. And I love this. I call her Windy Lady. She's one of 2 clapperboard women I've come across so far, with the second being from a shoot in the 80s. And the films in this section are from a promotional film for the Pillsbury Busy Lady Bake Off, a film about water pumps, and a Purina dog food commercial. And starting with this clip, this is from the Jam Handy organization out of Detroit. That may be a more familiar name for people aware of industrial films. This flower footage is from an unfinished film called American Choice for Chevrolet. Keep an eye out for these little Paramount Pictures paper slates where they crossed out Paramount Pictures and wrote in Jam Handy. And these outtakes are high quality 35mm negative documentation of a California wildflower super bloom in 1963. And this lens is called Cinesphere. It's a Jam Handy invention that mimicked the human field of vision for an immersive cinema experience. We also have some outtakes from Hollywood productions. I mean, these are some excellent landscape shots from Hollywood studios in the 30s and 40s. And just a few more here. This guy is having maybe too much fun at an Atomic Energy Commission press conference. This is from the San Francisco collective Mission Media Arts, which you'll hear more about later. And don't blink, there's going to be a clapperboard injury from the Henry Charles collection, who you'll also hear about later. Thanks. Follow Clapperboard Cuties on Instagram if you like what you see.
Thank you so much, Kristen. That was marvelous. And that ventriloquist is going to haunt my dreams forever. So thank you. Next up, we have a recorded presentation from Prelinger team member Emily Chow. Emily Chow is a filmmaker based in the Bay Area. Her films have screened at Biennale, IFFR, Sheffield Dockfest, BAM PFA, MoMI, Wexner Centre for the Arts, and elsewhere. She is a founding member of Black Hole Collective Film Lab in Oakland, California, and co-programmed Lightfield, an international exhibition of moving image art from 2017 to 2024. She's from San Jose, California, and earned her MFA in film and video at the California Institute of the Arts.
My name is Emily Chow, and I've been working for the Prelinger Archives since 2017, and home movies are my primary area of interest. I've assembled nearly 5,000 films for the archive, most of them home movies and orphaned films. A large part of film preparation involves a process of translation. I'm often the first to encounter the object, to pry the film can open, and inhale the dust. I'm a filter for the metadata, interpreting and decoding messages that have been left behind, in some cases more than 100 years ago. My encounters with these objects feel like conversations with ghosts. If a word or phrase is crossed out, I look for it in the film. I look for fragments, the compromised message, and admire the faded text and the water damage. I'm curious about what the physical state of the film can or container has to say about the contents of the film, if anything. This film of redwood trees survived a fire. This is a film we scanned for filmmaker Scott Stark. Notice how the handwriting and texture of this container resembles a shipwreck. Here's handwriting in Arabic that requires literal translation, from the Bay Area-based Sabra family, circa 1965. The container reads, "A picture of him after his birth." This can reads, "Our Town Yano Depot, Public Relations Officer, 1957. The Muraoka family were a Japanese-American family based in Southern California, often documenting their visits to post-war Japan. I love the handwritten titles taking form as pages in a book. Yano Station is a passenger railway station located in the city of Hiroshima. The description for this film reads, "Portrait of a Japanese town and countryside, with images of school children playing, fishing communities, farms, Buddhist temples, train stations, and more. Notable scene of a child posing next to an abundant radish harvest, plus presumably an oyster boat and oyster processing facility. Sometimes the ghosts offer poetry in the form of handwriting. This film is from the Jane Hofield Galanti collection. Jane's maternal grandfather was Frank Devendorf, the co-founder of the town of Carmel by the Sea in Monterey County, California. And then there are the films that don't survive time. This film was too brittle to be scanned. A typewritten poem is all that remains.
So that was Emily's wonderful presentation. So thank you, Emily. I'm not sure if you're watching today, but we greatly appreciate it. Next up is another recorded presentation, this time from Jen Miko. Jen is a film scanner and archivist at Prelinger Archives. She is an ardent archivist with a long history of working with silver-based images. Jen is a graduate of the L. Jeffrey Selznick School of Film Preservation and has worked with many Bay Area film preservation organizations over the years. Recently, in association with the San Francisco Silent Film Festival, she completed full restorations of several silent film titles. She served as interim executive director at the Niles SNA Film Museum and has also held positions on the archives team at Zoetrope Productions. As co-founder and former principal of Mouvette Film Transfer, her passion for amateur and small gauge cinema flourished as she accumulated decades of film handling experience. So please enjoy Jen Miko's presentation.
Hi, my name is Jen Miko. I'm a motion picture film archivist working with Prelinger Archives. The Prelinger collection spans the 20th century and is comprised of thousands of reels of motion picture film from diverse sources and which have spent their lives in widely variable storage conditions. Rarely do forgotten outtakes in amateur cinema enjoy the privileges of a cool and dry environment, which is so necessary for preservation. Much of the collection lacked proper storage throughout its active lifetime, and the results of this void are all too evident. Today I will share with you images captured from acetate film suffering the effects of vinegar syndrome. The reels have been scanned on a laser graphics scan station using a special warp gate. This singular apparatus allows the images contained in degraded film to be gathered once again, sometimes in their final moments of viability. The warp gate is a magical accessory, granting access to scenes long past. Most of the scenes we are viewing are held on camera original reversal film, which means the film digitized in the 21st century is the very same physical object which was present at the location of the scene captured upon it so long ago. Time and the elements, mold and decomposition have left their mark, embedded within the very fabric of the cellulose acetate. We can experience the life of this object and the conditions it has survived through our visual perception, and those very effects of time and nature inform our impressions and deepen the emotional understanding of the happenings depicted. These film clips exhibit many classical symptoms of vinegar syndrome, such as distortion, embrittlement, channeling, plasticizer exudation, and shrinkage. In many cases, the film stock is no longer flat. It is now round and curled, spoked like wire, or the footage has become brittle to such a degree it cracks and shatters into shards when unrolled from the reel pack. Sometimes the support or base shrinks at a quicker rate than the gelatin emulsion, resulting in the gelatin bunching up into raised dark grooves. This effect is known as channeling. The chemical plasticizer bound into the base to keep it pliable can begin to migrate, appearing as white spots on the surface, craggy lines, or even bubbles. Often this plasticizer will leach out as the film moves through the scanner, emerging as a soapy dust piling up like snow, visibly accumulating in the perforations and around the edges of the film frame. Sometimes the emulsion will flake and drop off in patches where these plasticizer bubbles took shape, leaving areas within the frame clear and missing all image information. Occasionally, the emulsion will separate as a tiny transparent sheet containing a ghostly yet recognizable silver portrait. You may have noticed that many of the clips in this show appear relatively untouched by degradation. the warp gate sandwich doing its job to smooth and flatten the brittle shrunken film to such a degree its damage is almost invisible. In many cases, these scenes spent their lives spliced on a reel, together with film stock damaged and in such advanced degradation, their condition precluded the scanning of any and all frames on the entire reel. The films comprising this show are each shrunken to varying degrees, with the most severe shrinkage at 4.8%. Of course, film stock this dimensionally distorted would be ripped to shreds if attempts were made to exhibit it using a standard projector. The pitch between perforations being so irregular, the teeth of the sprocket gear would gouge and tear the edge of the film stock. I'm grateful for the technology which affords such late in the game rescues and allows examination which deepens our appreciation of vital cultural markers. I'd like to leave you with a few words which resonate deeply with me. Written by Jane Bennett and published in her lucid and compelling work, Vibrant Matter. Materiality is a flow, an indivisible continuum of becomings whose protean elements are not only exquisitely imbricated in a flowing environment, but also are that very flow. Thank you.
That was so beautiful. Again, whenever Jen gets to see this, thank you for a wonderful piece. Next up, we have somebody in person, Meg Needles. Meg Needles is a film scanner and archivist at Prelinger Archives. They are an archivist based in San Francisco, California. Meg is a graduate of the Media Archival Studies MLIS program at UCLA and has worked at a number of San Francisco Bay Area archives, including Canyon Cinema, San Francisco Cinematheque, Oddball Films, and the GLBT Historical Society. So I will now invite Meg on screen. Thank you, Meg.
Hello, everyone. So excited to be here. Thank you for coming. I'm excited to talk with you all today and share this film with you because it relates to a subject that I really love, which is queer home movies. So anytime queer home movies are being made accessible online, there are ethical concerns that arise around privacy, the potential of outing subjects who may still be living, and misidentifying historical subjects. There's both a responsibility to respect the lives and identity and privacy of the historical subjects in these home movies, as well as a responsibility to contemporary users, namely queer users, for whom access to these films could be incredibly meaningful. And I think now is an especially important time to honor and celebrate and share queer history in the face of the anti-trans and anti-queer legislation and rhetoric that has become so prevalent. There are times when we come across a home movie in the collection where something in its content leads us to consider the possibility that it may be a queer home movie, something about the way people interact with one another or the activities that people are engaged in, for example, but for which you really have no way of knowing how these historical subjects identified. This brings up further considerations around their access and description that we wanted to work through. We currently approach the access to those home movies where we believe they may depict queer subjects or culture, but can't know with certainty by applying the tag possible LGBTQ plus research interest. This way, the films are discoverable by those users interested in queer history, but doesn't impose any specific identity terms to the subjects in the films, and also uses qualifying language that acknowledges that we don't know that this is in fact a queer home movie. So now I'm going to share a film that's an example of a home movie where we use this tag, and I'll also just share my email here in case anyone would like to get in touch to discuss this film or descriptive practice more. So this footage comes from an 8mm home movie filmed between 1955 and 1959. It's in the upper Midwest in Wisconsin and Illinois. And it's an unidentified home movie, meaning that we don't have much information about the makers or subjects of the film. As you can see, we're watching a women's softball league game. Markings on the lid of the can of this film tell us that this game took place in Peoria, Illinois in 1956. And while we don't know who these women are or how they may have identified, what we do know is that during and following World War II, women's softball teams were spaces that were often occupied by lesbians and queer women. I love this wind up. Another thing that I think is noteworthy about this particular film is that it seems to represent rural Midwest queer history, which is often marginalized within larger narratives of LGBTQ plus history, which can focus on communities in large urban centers.
Thank you, Meg. That was fascinating. Next up, we have Kate Dollenmeyer. Kate Dollenmeyer lives and works on Lejeune Ohlone land in Richmond, California. Currently, currently a film archivist at Prelinger Archives. Kate previously worked at the Academy Film Archive and the Vende Museum of the Cold War. Kate is also a filmmaker and volunteer at home movie days and community archiving workshops. So I will hand it over to Kate. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kathy. You can go ahead and roll the video. There's a few seconds of black at the beginning. Hi, everyone. I'm happy to have the chance to talk to you about our work with advisors and community partners at Prelinger Archives. Thank you, Kathy and the SFFP for inviting us, and thanks everyone for being here. I'm going to start by showing some footage of Celilo Falls as I speak about our Indigenous Advisory Group. Celilo Falls, or YM, was a tribal salmon fishing area on the Columbia River at the border of Oregon and Washington, and it was submerged in 1957 when the Dalles Dam was completed and closed. So photographs, oral accounts, and filmed images play an important role in preserving the memory of this sacred place that is now underwater. This is just one example of the many ways that Indigenous lands and peoples are visible in our collections. And when we started this project, we knew we needed to listen to Native people for guidance about how to share these films. Should some of the films be returned or rematriated to the peoples depicted? Are some of them appropriate to share online? And if so, how do we provide both specific and broad context and acknowledge the long histories of settler colonialism and racism that show up in our collections? How can we prioritize the needs of Indigenous users? These are some of the questions we are discussing with our paid Indigenous Advisory Group. We've met with 4 people so far who have varying tribal affiliations and vocations, including filmmakers, museum workers, artists, and educators. Building these kinds of relationships takes time, and Prelinger Archives is committed to continuing this work beyond the end of our current grant. This also includes scanning films for community partners, both Indigenous and non-Native. And next, I'm going to talk about one of our local partnerships. So I'm going to move on, but I'd be happy to talk more during the discussion at the end, and I'll also share my email address here. And I really welcome you to get in touch with me if you have questions or comments. Now I'm going to turn to Mission Media Arts, a youth filmmaking collective founded in the Mission District of San Francisco in 1971. Mission Media Arts produced programs for local television documenting street festivals, political protests, public art, family life, and much more. And a lot of this footage is silent, but there's also a good amount of sound material, and in a few minutes you'll hear members of the collective describe some of this work in their own words. Some of the Mission Media Arts films have also been preserved by San Francisco State University, but there's really just a huge amount of footage, so we've been able to help digitize and make available more of the many, many treasures in this collection. This is a banner for El Tecolote, which is a bilingual community newspaper that started as a La Raza Studies class project out of SF State in 1970, and it's still published in print and online today in the Mission. Some of what you're seeing includes outtakes from footage that was used in the 2010 documentary called Why I Ride, Low and Slow, which is on YouTube. I really recommend you check it out. I'll try to put the link in the chat later. It's about lowrider culture in the Mission and the celebratory spirit of its activism. In the late 70s and early 80s, lowrider car clubs were gaining popularity, and they became targets for police violence and racism, especially against Latinx youth. The lowriders fought back, organizing against harassment and street closures, and the Mission media crew supported this struggle by documenting police abuses on film. The city of San Francisco settled a civil rights lawsuit brought by the San Francisco Lowrider Council, who won the right to assemble and cruise, and to turn their gathering place in an empty lot into a public park known as La Raza. So I'll close there for now and let you hear some voices from the Mission Media Arts Archive.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so what is it that you have going here?
That we have going, you know. It's Mission Media Arts, and it's community, people coming together to make films, and to produce shows for television, drama, and all the media that we can impact.
What type of films have you been doing so far?
It's Charlie. What kind of films we've been doing, man? We've been doing films about the community, about, you know, about things that are related to the community. We did, the first film that we did, it was just a montage of people, you know, their faces, brown faces, black faces, and the community they live in, the things they see every day. And then we did a film about dancing, which was a thing about how dance is one of the things that has survived of the culture. You know, it's gone through changes and things. And then we also did a film about prison, which everybody around here relates to because, you know, it's a constant fear.
What did you try to put across in the film?
Well, what he was saying about it, the prison life, and get the feeling of in prison, like doors slamming and walking through there and walking through the child hall and stuff like that. You know, that the prison system is no good, man.
When it's down here, that means there's a lot of light. Put down to my feet, it's like it's in there. Yeah, stay there. Walk up the slide it. Slide down. Walk up the slide. Hey, little boy. Good stick.
Get out of him! Get out!
Thank you so much, Kate. And our last speaker today is Adrienne Finelli. Adrienne is an artist and archival film technician based in the Bay Area. She is currently project manager at Prelinger Archives and has been scanning films with the archives since 2016. Previously, she worked as a media specialist in the Department of Film and Media at UC Berkeley, as a film projectionist at SFMOMA, and has taught art and film courses at various universities. Adrienne holds an MFA in Media Arts from the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor. So welcome, Adrienne. You can take it from here.
Hi, thanks, Kathy. Hi, everyone. I am ready to roll. I was born in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, Christmas City, USA, in 1982, around the same time that Rick started the archives in New York. I grew up a creative kid in an industrial town and felt a longing to move away from a young age. I first learned about the Prelinger Archives while studying documentary filmmaking at Temple University. After years of teaching in Michigan and Pennsylvania, I made a big move to the Bay Area. It took me a while to find my footing and make connections. I began volunteering at the Prelinger Library and then started scanning home movies for Rick and Megan. I loved the work, and certain reels reminded me of the seasons that shaped me. That's how I found Henry. Henry Charles Fleischer was born in 1925 in Brooklyn, New York, the only child of immigrants from different lands. When Henry was 8, the family moved to Edison, New Jersey, his forever home with his beloved mother, Sarah, and his dear dad, Henry Sr. Young Henry developed a deep interest in moving images and began a parking business in his front yard to fund the purchase of his first 8mm film camera. In 1943, Henry was drafted into World War II. He served in the US Army and was injured in Germany the following year. While recuperating in the military hospital from combat injuries, Henry taught photography classes at the Army base and was awarded a Purple Heart for his service. After the war, Henry studied filmmaking at NYU on the GI Bill. He took photography courses with Adolf Fassbender, a regular fixture of the Camera Club of New York. Henry developed a passion for documentary filmmaking and attended the Flaherty Seminar in Vermont. Despite Henry's fascination with the world around him, he preferred the comforts of home. In 1950, Henry bought a 16mm camera and founded Henry Charles Studios, which operated out of his childhood home in Edison for 6 decades. The studio specialized in promotional and documentary films. Rooms dedicated to Henry's work peppered the family home. Facilities included air-conditioned studios, editing and cutting rooms, a film library, dark room, office space, and a 30-seat theater with a soundproof projection booth that his father constructed. In the early years of the business, Henry supplemented filmmaking projects with studio photography clients. He gained attention for the, quote, naturalness of his portraits, making his studio a popular choice for Middlesex County brides. Through this work, Henry became more engaged with local organizations and joined professional clubs and civic groups. Along with his mother, Henry became an avid volunteer and an advocate of community education. Henry Charles Studios made industrial and public service films for businesses, the state, research companies, resorts, the Department of Commerce, and many other clients, large and small. Films circulated through service clubs, chambers of commerce, and other similar groups in the New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and New York areas. Until Henry gained major clients like Johnson & Johnson, Bell Laboratories, and Prudential Insurance, he specialized in filming surgeries for Rutgers Medical School faculty as teaching tools. In 1960, Henry received an award from the state of New Jersey for producing Camera Eye on New Jersey, which he funded in part and donated to the state for public screenings. And in 1963, Charles's film, Good Neighbors Awards, won the Outstanding Public Relations Project of the Year award from the Public Relations Society of America. The Henry Charles Studio would go on to produce this annual film project of New Jersey's best companies for 20 years. Henry made films about the place where he was born and raised, his home that he loved dearly. His films featured his neighbors, the laborers who powered the corporations, the mechanics who kept things moving, the nurses who cared for ailing bodies, and the people who harvested food needed for survival. His humanist spirit is captured in the faces and hands of those doing the work. His gaze is filled with the curiosity of a child who asks, "What do people do all day?" Henry was interested in it all, never able to see enough the first time around. He was community-minded and often took on clients despite their limited funding. For Land's Sake was made to promote the preservation of farmland in New Jersey. Sponsored by the New Jersey Department of Agriculture, the film was made available without charge to civic organizations and was written and narrated by John T. Cunningham, noted New Jersey author and historian. Many of Henry's Jersey Shore promotional films aired on regional and Canadian television stations. Follow the Gulls, that features the many splendors of Cape May County, toured cities throughout the East Coast. The press of Atlantic City reported that attendance at the shows totaled more than 450,000 people. At the peak of their business, Henry Charles Studios employed 7 people and worked regularly with the same technicians when services beyond their in-house team were needed. As business ebbed, the crew was often pared down to just Henry and his longtime colleague, Jack Donaghy, 25 years his senior and a filmmaker in his own right. Henry greatly admired Jack's early documentary work about New Jersey. Rick Prelinger first met Henry Charles in 1985 and forged a 25-year-long friendship. At the end of his life, Henry gifted his entire film collection, including home movies and outtakes, to Prelinger Archives. I imagine that we may be the only archive where you can find Henry's films. For this and many other reasons, I think of the Henry Charles collection as the ruby-colored jewel of the archives. And through this project, we've been able to digitize even more of Henry's work and make it accessible to everyone. What use can these old films have? To quote Henry, the camera sees better than the eye. What do you find within them? What can you make from them? A comedic horror on the luxury of boredom? A love letter to landscapes? A critical essay on the pervasive whiteness of mid-century America? A celebration of community? An experimental study of labor and industry? Beyond what Henry wanted us to see, the camera eye remembers. Hundreds of hours of human recorded imagery, documenting our glory and our ugliness on this fragile home of ours. Thousands of new works live within the Henry Charles collection. These images of the past can generate new ideas for possible futures. And like the delicate yet durable medium of film, history can be added to, untold chapters spliced in, damaged frames repaired, and inaccurate depictions cut out to make room for more colorful scenes. Henry Charles wasn't any ordinary commercial filmmaker. He was a real artist. From a very young age, he had a persistent vision and an extraordinary talent for communicating through images. He found beauty in everything and cared deeply about the world around him. Henry enjoyed rewatching his films and said that with each viewing, he found something new to appreciate. Thanks to this project, we all have the opportunity to discover our own treasures within this vast collection. Thank you. We would like to thank Rick and Megan Prelinger, Bryn O'Donnell, and everyone at the Filecoin Foundation for the Decentralized Web, everyone at the Internet Archive, especially the Richmond crew, Matthew Soper, Jessica Karate, Kazlan Kale, and Kevin O'Hare. I'd like to thank Brian Eggert, Ariana Taberti, our project interns, Matt Yang and Jose Soleil, our EMEA Pathways Fellows, Ashley Rose Tashira and Autumn Armstrong. I'd like to thank Antonella Bonfanti and John Shibata, and especially Kathy Rose O'Regan for inviting us here, and everyone at SFFP. And a special shout out to our families, friends, and our partners for their support. Thanks. The end.
Thank you, Adrienne. That was so great. So thank you all for being here. Thank you for your presentations. It's been a an incredible hour. So if anyone who is attending has any questions, please pop them in the Q&A and I can field them to all of the Prelinger crew here. But I have some questions prepared also while we wait and see if anyone in the crowd has questions. So starting with Kristen, obviously your interest is in something very specific that is almost never seen. So have you come across any archives or institutions that do collect things like this, like the offcuts, I guess, from films?
Yeah, so I previously worked on a project. It's called California Revealed now, but it used to be called the California Audiovisual Preservation Project that worked with different archives across the state to digitize audiovisual materials. And so a lot came through from different archives, and there are archives that have outtakes, but when it came, and those would often come with like, maybe they have all the film elements for a certain film project or something. And so outtakes would be included in that. But whenever something was selected for digitization, the final work would be prioritized, or maybe like something that's like the step before the final film, which would be maybe like A/B rolls or something that would have that the like it would have the quality of like the original film material, but it would obviously have none of the people, none of the slate people, none of the footage that they wouldn't want to include in the final film, which makes sense. Like there's film elements, they're
Why would it be
complicated.
included?
If you're gonna choose something, choose the final work. But I don't know. I also have, it's been really delightful to be able to see this kind of thing that you don't normally see, and see the people who are working in film and just like what they dress like and how they interact with each other.
Yeah, it's much more contextualizing than a fictional film, right?
Yeah.
And actually to your presentation, Peter Conheim just asked, what were there any tracks, or is it just mute image when it comes to all the clapperboard stuff? Was there ever audio?
All of the outtakes we have are silent, so I think audio would have been recorded separately, or maybe, ultimately there would be like a narration overlaid the final cut or something, depending on the work. But yeah, all the footage we have is silent.
Thank you. Dave Glass is wondering what percentage of the collection has been scanned so far. So I'm not sure which of you is the best to answer that. Adrian, maybe?
Yeah, the percentage, that is always an interesting question. I feel like the number is growing and we are still receiving films, but I think we've scanned about 10,000 items, and there are about 40,000. So, yeah, we would need a much longer project to scan everything.
Yeah. That's still exceptional. I mean, 3 million feet of footage is very hard to even like wrap.
If you unwind the film, it'll reach Tijuana now. I keep track of where we've gone.
That's great. I like that. That's a very, coming from Ireland, I, worked with the metric system. So it's nice to have like, oh, Tijuana. Okay, I know where that is. Get a sense of how much it actually is. Great. Susan Charlotte was just asking if this recording is going to be available after today's presentation. So we are recording, and we will be putting out probably an edited version of this material. I need to speak to the team about what can and cannot be shared. So next, Meg, I'll just do you in chronological order. I feel like what you're talking about is so complex for so many reasons. But as regards the kind of items in the collection that you have identified as likely being queer, how large is that collection? And a kind of a follow-up question. I mean, I know you get collections from lots of different places. Have you ever been in communication with any of the original owners of the material, or how do you feel about even reaching out about something that can be fraught, particularly if people were living maybe had closeted identities in the eras that this footage is coming from?
Yeah, that's a great question. I looked up recently how many home movies have this tag so it was like as of last week, we have 30 home movies that have this tag. And yeah, I was like really curious joining this project because I've been interested in queer home movies for a while, just how many would turn up, and they're turning up, and I know there will be more that turn up, but it is like a small but mighty collection. Um, and yeah, I would say there certainly are cases in general where we're in touch with a donor, with a family, of home movies. With queer home movies, that may also be possible. But I think that most of these queer home movies that have, or the possible queer LGBTQ plus research interest home movies, are orphaned and unidentified. And so we don't really have much information on their provenance or who made them. Um, I think that I think whenever it's possible to reunite a film to its maker, especially with something as sensitive and intimate, um, as like a queer home movie can be, I think that's ideal. When it's able to happen. And like with this film in particular, like we don't have much information, but I think it could be possible. Like I have faith that we have some of the first names of the players from original can markings, and we know the year of the game, and it's in Peoria, Illinois. So I feel
Yeah,
like there's gotta be a historical society.
right. There's some newspaper listing about some
Yeah,
lady league somewhere, you know.
exactly. And yeah, I think that would be great. Just yeah, obviously, those films were made in really intimate spaces during a time when being queer, being out was incredibly dangerous. And there's no way that they could have anticipated or, that where their films would wind up. And so I think when it's possible to reunite and have conversations and get more context about home movies, and consent for
Mhm.
access, that's ideal. Yeah.
So I guess on the point of consent, say the footage you showed today, has that been posted on the Internet Archive? Or
No.
is all of the
Yeah.
queer materials have not? I'm just not sure.
Yeah, that's a great question. I would have to go back and look. These films have not been, or this
Mhm.
film has not been
Yeah,
uploaded to the Internet Archive as of yet. But I think, we have a process of like reviewing home movies for
Mhm.
sensitive material and, really make an effort to make sure we're being thoughtful about what we are putting online, and, we'll ultimately have a conversation about these
Right,
movies. But I think that's also really important right now to make queer history accessible and
right.
get
It's a
out.
delicate balance.
It
Yeah.
is. It is a delicate balance. So anyways, yeah, conversation we'll continue to have as a team, but I'm really for putting things online
Mhm.
when possible.
Well, it's wonderful to see an archival team being so thoughtful about your materials and how they're being accessed while still prioritizing access. I think it's um, yeah, you should all be very proud of yourselves for the the institution you've built. So to Kate, I'm interested about your advisory board for the Native Indigenous peoples content. How did you go about putting together that board? I mean, what was the process for that?
Yeah, I mean, my first step was trying to identify someone who could not only advise us, but also help design how that advising work would look, especially because we don't have any Native American staff members. So I wanted to find someone who could co-lead that work with us. I'm sorry, can you hear me okay? Just some sawing started outside. I really apologize for that.
I can hear you. Yeah, you're good.
I'll try to talk loudly. So yeah, we're working, thank you. We're working with a filmmaker who also is the archivist of her own family's home movies, named Colleen Thurston, who I actually met at the Association of Moving Image Archivists conference in Tulsa, Oklahoma, where she lives. So she has helped us kind of design that advisory group and identify other people that we could speak with. And I also thought it was really important to work with Indigenous groups and individuals locally. So one of the groups we've been in consultation with is the Segorite Land Trust here in the East Bay, which is an Indigenous land trust. And we're specifically talking to them also about how we bring to light Indigenous place names in our catalog records. So yeah, and it's been different ways that we were really trying to identify a variety of people and talk to as many people as we can, because we know that, no one person or even a few people can represent all of Indigenous identity in the US or the world. We have our collection is majority US, but we do have a lot of international films as well that also include Indigenous representation. So there are a lot of different aspects of that work, but it's ongoing. And yeah, I hope that I also just wanted to share, Colleen Thurston is the name of our lead advisor, and just wanted to mention because she has her own film, which includes her family's home movies, and which is a documentary about water rights and water usage, is premiering this weekend in Los Angeles, Washington, D.C., and Santa Fe. So I'll put a link for that information in the chat in case anyone wants to check out those screenings.
Great, thank you, Kate. And to Adrian, I'm just interested, like, what was your entry point into the collection? Like, what was it? Was it about the work itself that initially sparked your interest before kind of deep diving into his collection?
The collection overall, or specifically Henry Charles?
Yeah, Henry Charles's collection.
Henry,
yeah, wondering what it was about his work that caught your eye, because he seems to have created so much.
The filming, the photography of it, I think, I've been through several different iterations of the Prelinger Archives scanning, and was at the very beginning scanning out of the Internet Archive headquarters at Funston, and Rick would bring in different materials, but whenever I saw this label, Henry Charles, or I don't know, there was something striking about the photography work, and it's different, and that was true of both home movie footage and other projects that he was working on. And I don't know how old he was when some of these home movies were made, but he was a real filmmaker at a very young age, was like storyboarding, and his family's Christmas movies are unlike any other families. And in the world of home movies, you're scanning a lot of that material. So something was very striking about the visuals, and
yeah, no, I mean, the work is, the color is so incredible. Like, I mean, I am obviously not from the East Coast. I haven't spent very much time there, but I can imagine it will catch your eye, seeing all those like banks of orange and red leaves. It's so beautiful. So we have a few more questions in the Q&A. David Gallagher is wondering if there is a standard or policy for metadata tagging, or a set of tags that are used at the Prelinger Archives.
Can try to tackle that one, but anyone else please jump in too. Yeah, we developed a set of kind of controlled subject headings that were drawn partly from those that, I mean, we based it on subject headings that Prelinger Archives has been using since before we began this phase of the project, and then we tried to adapt those to just reflect the current focus of our work, and especially trying to put a focus on underrepresented communities and kind of develop approaches that are culturally responsive or that try to both put in context material that often includes, you know, racist depictions, that includes harmful material. So sometimes in the film itself, there are images that we want to still be able to provide access to, but give context to. And so we do that partly through written descriptions, partly through subject headings and tags that we apply to kind of give people notice about what they're about to see. We also include content warnings. And then there's some footage that we just hold back for those reasons. But we're also trying to kind of emphasize and bring to light depictions that have traditionally often been underrepresented or underdescribed in archives. So we're trying to develop language, and that's partly in consultation with advisors. And so we're developing both, we're continuing to develop those subject headings. And also we have tags which are not controlled, but we add, and we try to add a lot of detail as we're going along. So those range from really fun and quirky tags in some, you know, you can kind of imagine the footage that you saw. We have some internal kind of fun with our tags, but we hope that those will also give people multiple entryways into the footage. Anyone else want to add anything? Please do.
We have like a list of 100-ish subject terms, and then we also have tags, which are the more loose ones. And however, some things we've like all joined together to like kind of use the same tags. Like I really like using the tags that describe behaviors in home movies. So things like waving at camera is a tag that we all, you know, it's not controlled, but we all use that, or like raising a glass, or yeah, like goofing for camera, things that you repeatedly see, especially in home movies, that we kind of want to all describe the same way, but then leave room for like child feeding hippopotamus, or like whatever weird thing you actually.
I really hope that's a real thing.
I'm sure it
It seems like a dangerous thing to allow your child.
Anything you can think of is in
and then do you have do you control how many tags you'll apply to an object, or do you have kind of a limit where you think beyond that is too much? Or I'm just genuinely interested.
Yeah, it's just a giant field, so you can add as much as you want, or like, yeah, you do have to like, you could spend all day.
Right. This is what I think, right? It's like, how deep do you want to go when you're trying to get your work done?
The duration of the film, longer films obviously will have like more tags applied to them, just because there's more content to describe. But yeah, there's no limit, except for on your own time and the amount of attention you can give.
Yeah. Great. Okay, that's great. Okay, our next question is a difficult one from Dan Papa. How do we make sure preservation work continues in this time of extreme precarity of funding? I don't know if anybody would like to feel that, because I think we're all living in the same deeply frustrated world at the moment. Anybody? As I certainly don't have an answer at the moment. Keep calling your representatives to try and change policy. I'm afraid that's all I can say myself right now. Anybody else want to pipe in, or will we move on from?
Yeah, I don't know.
Everything's
I wish I knew.
Yes, don't we all? Okay, Charles Tepperman, he says, great presentations. Agreed. What is the best way of navigating this collection via tags, etc.? Is it on the Internet Archive or elsewhere?
Someone else can chime in.
Someone, not Chris.
My hand's on the unmute button. So it is on the Internet Archive. It's in the Prelinger Archives collection, which you can get to immediately by going to archive.org/details/Prelinger. And there are, in that collection, there are older scans and then newer scans that have been created during this project. And it's, it's getting uploaded slowly. We do have, so if you like are on a specific films page, there are like the subjects we apply are hyperlinks. So you can click on any of those and like see everything else with the subject, I don't know, labor unions. But then that takes you to everything, there could be other people on the Internet Archive who've applied the subject labor unions. So you'll see everything on the Internet Archive with that subject, but you can like limit to the Prelinger Archives collection. Yeah. Anyway.
And so you've posted 2,000 items so far. What percentage is that of all of the items that will be up there eventually? Like, is there still, do you have a lot of things ready to go that will be posted soon?
Yeah, I have hundreds more that are will be ready soon. And then, yeah, I guess it just depends on how much we're able to scan. And I don't know, Adrian, if you have like thoughts about that.
We're going to keep scanning a lot.
Keep scanning 24 hours a day.
I mean, our current grant is ending at the end of July. So, but we're dedicated to scanning many more films. And so sometimes counting an item, it might be a very, very small home movie that counts as an item. So there will be, several thousand more films scanned during this grant. And like Kristen said, there's a backlog of files that are not yet uploaded that still need to go through some metadata editing and QC. And yeah, those will be making their way online. I think Sarah Hotchkiss, who wrote this wonderful article for KQED, was asking when everything would be accessible that was scanned during this project. And I was on the phone with her and Rick was within earshot, and it was just like, what do you think? And I think we said July 2026 we would have, so yeah, there'll be a lot more loaded.
Right. I'm just going to read Lydia's question aloud because I'm not sure. I don't believe everyone can see the Q&A. So Lydia Pappas asked, Kate, do you have any advice about dealing with home movies that depict Indigenous peoples or tribal peoples filmed by travelers? And Kate has answered that in the chat for all of your reference. And Kate, I don't know if you can speak to it more.
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to add to that. I mean, as I said in the chat, we've been kind of holding back from upload any new films that, as we scan them, we identify as having an Indigenous representation, but with the intent of uploading many, though probably not all of those, once we've kind of finalized this phase of our guidance. It will always be an ongoing work in progress. But I'll say one thing, that films of ceremonies are really, that's pretty clear that those were often done without full consent, even if at the time it seemed that it was presented as a public event. The conditions about whether those events are really allowed to be filmed have changed, and so we're trying to really pay attention to that. So I would recommend to others to err on the side of not uploading films that have any kind of ceremony in them. And just also, as much as you can identify a particular region or Indigenous group that might be from that area, get in touch with them directly and ask for their guidance and sort of take their lead on how these films should be shared. But I know that also I'll say that, of the advisors we've spoken to, everyone, I think, thinks that there's a great value in sharing a lot of these films with everybody, not just Indigenous people, although we're trying to prioritize like the needs of Indigenous users and how they would want us to be sharing these films. So I think there is a will to make them more visible to everyone because it's, you know, really important history for everyone to see, but we're trying to do it with the requisite kind of context in the description and how people actually access the films.
Yep.
So that we can respect the people in the films and respect those films as cultural objects.
Great, thank you, Kate. Sandra Schulberg is curious, what is the digital preservation encode you privilege for long-term stability of scanned objects? Don't know which one of you is the best person to ask.
Yeah, it looks like Rick's answering that in
Oh.
the chat. But yes, we make ProRes files for our preservation copies. And then we create a smaller derivative for upload to the Internet Archive, and an even smaller one that goes to YouTube. Yeah.
Great, thank you very much. And an anonymous attendee is asking, what is the entity that provided the grant, which I mentioned at the start, but I don't know, Adrian, if you want to speak more about Filecoin.
Yeah, sure. So Filecoin Foundation for the Decentralized Web, FFDW, and they're a foundation that has funded several different projects. We are funded through the Social Impact Project with Filecoin, and so it's part of this decentralized web, Web 3.0. It's an internet protocol that uses blockchain technology to store data across a network of independent computers. And I believe FFDW's mission is preservation of humanity's most important information. And you know, it's just a alternative to what the web is now. And for information to be distributed and by independent users rather than corporations.
Great, okay. Thank you very much. Yeah, and then we're going to be finishing up shortly, but I guess I just wanted to ask kind of a very all-encapsulating question. The collection is obviously huge and incredibly diverse in like every iteration of the word diverse. So where did everything come from? Where did the Prelinger Archive come from? For those who do not have an awareness of the archives.
I guess where did it come from? It comes from Rick Prelinger started the archives, I think in 1983 is often stated. And I think that he was collecting films from, you know, things that people were getting rid of when, you know, either labs were shutting down, and he was collecting a lot more educational, sponsored films, those types of films in the earlier days. And then right around the time period that he joined in partnership with the Internet Archive to make his collection accessible for free, he shifted, along with Megan, who now co-runs, Megan Prelinger, co-runs the Prelinger Archives. They shifted more to focusing on home movie collections. So, and those come from many different sources. Some they've purchased, and many have been donated just by individuals. Sometimes those individuals, it's just a collection of anonymous home movies. Sometimes those individuals, it's home movies that are coming from their own family. Yeah.
Great. Okay. Thank you very much. Well, I think it's probably time to finish up. Thank you all, Kristen, Adrian, Meg, Kate. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you to Jen and Emily for contributing their presentations. It was all so wonderful and moving and funny and powerful. And the work you do is so vital, and I appreciate it. we all appreciate it. So thank you, and keep on scanning, get up to 5 million. I'll check in soon about how far further down into Latin America we can get with the film. So thank you all so much. And thank you everybody in attendance for being here today, for taking the time to join us. I hope you all enjoyed it as much as I did. For those of you in the Bay Area, you can catch today's presentation live and in person with all of these wonderful team members who are here today at the Internet Archive on Funston Avenue in the Richmond this coming Monday, March 24th at 7 p.m. It is a free event. You just need to RSVP through Eventbrite. I believe that is correct. To keep up with San Francisco Film Preserve, please follow us on your social media platform of choice. We are at SF Film Preserve. The next installment of Online with SFFP takes place on April 18th, when author Christine Letou will join us to discuss the work of Maurice Tournier, director of The White Heather, which was SFFP's first restoration. You can learn more and register for this event by visiting filmpreserve.org. So that is it from us. Thank you all so much. And again, to the Prelinger team, thank you so much for being here today. Have a great weekend.
Thanks, Kathy.
Thank you, Kathy. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.